Kai Kunze. I'm working at Osaka Prefecture University, and today I want to talk a little bit about my experiences with Google Glass. I have it since December last year, and I gave the title at the presentation the name Hacking Glass, but it's not really hacking. I mean, we'll get to a little bit more details, and at least a student of mine wrote already some native programs for it, but maybe later, during the year, I can give an update on the talk. And first, I want to talk a little bit about my background and also a little bit about variable computing in general. So what you see here is the kind of the original cyborgs from MIT. So especially Steve Mann, some people might know. And also this guy here, he's also quite important, especially if we talk about glass. That's Pat Sterner. He's now the project lead of Google Glass at Google X. And my background with variable computing was, I did some work, this is also in the presentation I gave last year, also at Hacker News, with head-mounted displays at Zeiss. And variable computing in industry is kind of, getting a foothold. So here you see a Zeiss worker where we did some user study using it during maintenance work. So you see on top his display, and he gets kind of error messages, and he gets also the next steps or so on embedded into his work. And the nice part about head-mounted displays in general is that you can kind of work hands-free. And this is the more interesting part, I think, about Google Glass than a lot of the privacy debate you heard about and so on. And also, we saw with this study especially that people were really interested in getting a device they can carry with them and tells them, kind of the next steps and the working progress or so on. Beforehand, if you talk about maintenance workers, what they need to do is they have a 500-page manual, and they always have to switch between their actual work and the manual, and that's cumbersome, especially if you have dirty hands or other things. So having something close by that can help you, and a variable display is one thing, could be useful. And my background is I did a PhD thesis in variable computing, focusing on activity recognition, so not doing so much with displays, but more or less trying to detect what you're doing using motion sensors. And I was supervised by Paul. That's an old picture of Paul. So you see kind of the analogy to the cyborgs in the first picture. And at the time we were wearing this clunky hardware. So except of maybe one thing which was really nice was the Qubit. That's a variable computer, Linux-based computer from ETH. This was when Paul was still at ETH. I joined him later in Innsbruck in Austria, and then I finished my PhD in Passau. And you see it, maybe you can't see it, but I'm wearing it over here. So kind of this is a full-fledged Linux PC, and this was around 2004, 2003 or so on. And you're running around like this, and then also maybe important, at the time Paul was not really, this is another picture from Paul, this is with Tad, when Tad adjusts his Google Glass at Ubicom. And the funny part about this picture is Paul and also I myself were not so big fans of variable displays, because at the time they caused a lot of eye strain. So there was the micro-optical out, and it was really hard to use. Tad used it for most of his thesis. I think he wrote half of his PhD thesis on the device, but for me it was impossible to really focus on it or so on. And so the reason, this is one of the Glass, Google Glass advertisements you can see or so on. The reason why I think Tad or the people at Google X put out Glass is to enable micro-interactions. So we don't have to focus on our smartphones anymore. I'm not sure, you can judge yourself later on, you can try it out if they succeeded already with the first prototype. I have to say that Glass right now, it's a developer preview, and I really like it for, we were talking, I think the first time when I started, just around when I started my PhD, we were meeting in Zurich, or beforehand, and Paul and Tad were kind of chatting about how cool it would be if people could get variable displays and what you could do with it. And now if we have the smartphone, we are always, kind of looking at the next Twitter posts or other things and not concentrating on our world around us. And if we have more seamless technology that can help us you know, kind of blend in into the real world, and the interface can kind of vanish, and we can focus on more important parts than just carrying it or looking at our smartphone screens. That would be nice, and I think that's the direction where glass is heading. So it's not so much about the front-facing camera that, you know, is always in the news. I think it's more interesting to have a wearable display, and actually also sensors with it. So a small brief recap what's inside. So it's Android 4.4. It has a relatively low resolution screen when you try it out. 5 megapixel camera. It has Bluetooth. It has Bluetooth 4, but Android 4.4 just allows you to use Bluetooth. No, it doesn't allow you to use Bluetooth 4, which kind of sucks, but I hope they fix it soon. It has 16 gigabyte of storage, and in general, if you read through it, it's kind of the specs of a Galaxy 2-ish device. So you're more or less carrying a smartphone on top here, but it's not really a smartphone. I mean, you have to use other interaction modalities for it. What excites me personally is, of course, the motion sensors. So now you're not only carrying motion sensors in your pockets, so detecting for what you might be doing, but you're also carrying maybe one in the future also on your head. And I think this is really interesting, and this is something, the display and the motion sensors get me really excited. Then you have a bone conducer for sound, and an ambient light sensor, and a proximity sensor. We'll get to the proximity sensor later on. The user interface, as some of you already tried out, you have kind of 2 ways to interact with it. One is voice, so you can, as soon as you activate it, there's this strange head gesture where you pull up and then the glass is on. I'll show later a screencast so you can easily see. And then you can say the words like OK glass and then take a picture. And the funny thing is also it works for everybody. So as soon as the thing is activated, everybody can kind of interact, you know. So if you're giving a presentation and see a lot of Google Glass people in the audience, you can say, you know, look up there and then say OK glass and take a picture and it should work. Yeah, like right now. And then also the touch. So you have a touch panel on the left side. You can touch one, so you activate the device. And you have a timeline view, which I show in the next picture. So you see always this the time and the OK glass command at the start screen. And then you can swipe left or right. And if you slide to the right, yeah, to the right, you get back. So this means all pictures you took, all old emails you got, everything in one timeline. Which right now it's kind of okay, but if you have more applications or other things running, I have now installed a couple of applications. It gets a little bit messy after a while, especially if you're searching for something. You have to kind of search for a long time. But if you get an email or so on, it's also put in there. And then on if you swipe to the other side, so to the left side, you get more or less Google Now. So you get a card interface for directions, kind of weather and other things, anything you would also have on an Android handy with Google Now. Now, quickly, I want to show a small demonstration. So you can connect it, they're quite open for hacking, so you can connect it easily to your, you don't see anything. Sorry, you can connect it easily to your laptop, and you can use, in this case I'm using the Android screen monitor, just simply for that. I hope that it's alright if I take pictures of you. And so you can see the OK glass, the start screen. If I swipe, now I said OK glass. This sometimes happens if you try to, so I started a timer accidentally. OK glass. Then here you have the commands. So as you see, I installed quite a couple of applications already. And if I now say like take a picture, it's a bit slow because I played too much with it. So there are a couple of issues with it, especially if you record. So this is then forward. So this is by Google Now. So it gives me my directions to go home. And if I start, you can kind of see the directions, and if I would start kind of walking or so on, I could also see a 3D view of the directions, which is kind of nice. So I like it for a car. So if you are kind of driving in a car, it's better than using a dashboard or so on, because you directly have it in your view and you don't have to look aside. So one eye is always on the street still. And the same for bikes. So this is two of my main uses right now for bike navigation or car navigation. And then let me cancel. Oh no, I have to cancel it. So, and also other things like the weather, or then kind of settings and so on. And now I just want to get rid of the timer I started. So I can also show some. They just brought out some, they call it augmented reality games. Maybe it's not working so well, or maybe I show it later or so. There are a couple of other applications I will also show. And if you swipe back, you see, all pictures I took. I'm not sure what this is. And now it's really slow. A lot of media and also emails or other things like in timelines. So for example, emails. And you can also read them on the device, and you can also answer back the emails kind of with also voice command, which works relatively well. So if you tried out Google, the Google search on Chrome, this is just local, so a lot of the voice commands and so on are done locally. But for the dictation and so on, I think they use the same interface as they use for Google Chrome. So in this case, it works relatively well. I was surprised how well it works to just answer quickly back an email. So what you do if you receive a mail, you hear a little ping over this bone conductivity. You then activate glass either by doing this strange head gesture upwards, or by tapping the device, and then you can also just say reply, and you can reply to the email directly. So that's that. And one thing is also, it's, as Mary mentioned already, it's very hackable. So I should give a warning. So if you do this, you void your warranty or might leave the device in an unrecoverable state. So as soon as you unlock the bootloader, as with other Android devices, as with the Nexus 5 or 7, you don't have any warranty anymore, and you might break the device. You can easily get root. You can also easily install some stock Android or Ubuntu. It works fairly simple. Google gives you even the instructions for that in an I/O session, which is, I think, pretty cool. I mean, compared to other companies. And also, they provide you with the ROM. So in any case, if something goes wrong. So I had it 2 times in a state where I felt like, oops. It might not work anymore, but I could flash back the boot image in the system and the recovery image, and it worked again. So they provide you with the factory images for it, and are very open. So I think the talk is really nice. They also show how to run Android on the device, or also how to install Android applications. For installing Android applications, you don't need to root, so you don't void your warranty. You can just use RDB like you would do with any other device. It's recognized by the Eclipse, and you can just put it there. They give now an instruction, so there are, I think, 2 ways to do this, to develop for Google Class. One is boring, one is just using the web API, kind of Python and JSON, and you are very limited with what you can do. You basically just give kind of HTML views you can see on the screen. You can get location updates, but just every 10 or 15 minutes, and that's it. No other sensors, no nothing else. And the other way is to use the Android SDK. They provide a beta preview right now. It's well documented how to install it. And what you do is just to write a normal Android application. The only thing is you have to not use any, theme or so on, because then it automatically uses this card theme, and you can lay out your view there. For Me, what was kind of a little bit disappointing was, I mean, you probably know from the old work, I'm doing eye gaze research, and I was hoping that maybe they have a camera, you know, I was really disappointed. Why did they put the camera towards the outside? Why not towards the eye? Because towards the eye would be more interesting. So this is some of the device we use in the lab. So this is a infrared eye tracker. You see the camera images of the two eyes, and with this you can kind of really tell where somebody is looking at in the environment. And what we implemented just with eye gaze is kind of a wordometer, or you can distinguish kind of document types and so on. So I would really like to do this. But kind of my slides are a bit out of... Ah, yeah, right. Oh, my slides were kind of a little bit out of order. But anyways, I'll get to the eye gaze stuff later on. Anyway, when I got the device, the first thing I did was a kind of reality test. I do this very often to just try out new technology. I give it my grandparents and see what they think of it. And so far they have a good track record. I mean, they like the Nintendo DS, they like the iPad and iPhone, they like the Wii U, and they get a lot of, you know, hardware or other stuff in their hands. And the nice thing about the glasses were they were kind of obvious for them to use. For other technology, they're usually a bit scared on how to use it, but because it looks like glasses, they knew, okay, it can be a little bit fragile, but you know, I can just put it on. And I wrote also a little bit on a blog post about it. And interesting for me was, I mean, the interface is in English and they're German, so there's some trouble with using it, but taking a picture was easy enough. And they could use it, and they could actually find interesting applications, and they mostly use the camera. So one was my grandfather took pictures of his pills, so his medicine. So he knew he took the medicine. So as you remember from the sliding from the kind of timeline view, you can see all pictures, and you get a kind of 20 minutes ago or 1 hour ago. So he knew I took the medicine, because sometimes he cannot. He always wonders. He goes outside. He works in a wood workshop, and sometimes he wonders, did I take it or did I not take it? And with this he can remember. Another thing was timers for cooking, so my grandmother used it for that, and my mother used it for trying to do you know, comparative shopping while on the road. The problem there was that Google Glass so far doesn't support zoom for all pictures, so you cannot really zoom into the picture. This is some of the troublesome part. But they really liked it, and they also, so we tried out Hangout, which was nice. Especially they thought for gardening, because my grandmother sometimes wonders where to put things. The same thing for cooking, so kind of trying to figure out, you know, which ingredients to use and so on. And she likes to talk with friends about it, so she thought kind of video chat in this case would be a nice application, because she can keep her hands free. She can still continue, especially gardening if you have dirty hands. She can kind of still continue doing what she's doing and easily chat with people. And they didn't mind the weight or so on too much. For me it's strange because I don't wear glasses, so having it on for a longer period of time, it takes just kind of, you know, maybe an hour or so that I can forget about it, but beforehand at the beginning it's always a little bit strange. They didn't really have this feeling, so for them it was okay. I mean, several issues when you later on will see this, or you already saw this, it'll get hot if you use it for a longer period of time. So it's really made for micro interactions, not for recording your whole life, which also probably wouldn't work because the battery lasts maybe an hour if you continuously record video, and the battery life is really bad. So in this case, I'm usually carrying around with me one of those, so extendable battery. This has, I think, 3 iPhone charges, and it's good to get over a day or a couple of days actually. And you can plug it in while you use the device. So this is nice, it charges while you use it. There's one thing, I hope it works now, because as I said, the device got a little bit hot. There's no, there's a scene camera, as I mentioned beforehand, and as an eye gaze person, I would really like to have something on the eye. And there is actually something on the eye, but unfortunately not a camera. So now, sorry, I need to do some shell magic. No, wait, wrong shell. So because I rebooted the device, I'm not sure why, but I need to change mod. So if you know ADB, I can just say root. This is the Android debugger. And if I say ADB shell, I'm now on the root shell. Maybe something about the architecture. Oh, wait. So if we go ls, it's a normal Linux laptop. You have in sys, which now I have to. Yeah, right. What I do now, so in the sys bus I2C I square C, there's an I square C bus to have the embedded sensors on the device. The unfortunate thing is between the sensors and you is a chip that they don't tell you what it is. So it's kind of a special chip that also filters sensor data and so on, which I don't like so much. So because one problem I have right now is I don't get timestamps. I just get the raw values from the sensors. And interesting for us is this prox raw. So if I do, you can maybe guess what it is. If I do a cut on prox raw, I get one value, and if I close my eyes and also do a cut, you see that the value changed, and if I open my eyes again, the value is again something else. So if I now start, more or less it's a proximity sensor that's focusing on the eye. It's there to recognize if you carry the device or not. And you maybe heard already that you can use it to take pictures, so there's but that's not what I want to show you. OK Glass, run an app. And these are kind of the apps, the Android apps I have installed. And if I go down to Glass Logger, this is now an app a student of mine wrote, Shoya. Some might know Shoya, he was already in one of the hackathons. And here you see the raw value and blinking count. So you can use this to, it's a bit chunky on the display over here, it works a little bit better, you can try it out later on. You can get eye blinks, and you might not hear it, but it makes a sound every time I blink the eye, and it counts the eye blinks. Why this is interesting is if you imagine you wear this device while driving a car, you can kind of measure how often you blink the eyes and get something like fatigue. So, you know, if you close the eye for too long, the glass can tell you, oh, open your eyes, and also and also tell you, you know, you should probably take a break because you get tired. Other things what we try to do with it is also eye blinking. You can also try to recognize different activities with it, because your blinking rate differs if you talk versus if you watch a video versus if you're reading. So this is kind of a low, it's not really, you know, eye gaze, but you know, it's kind of a low granularity sensor that might be interesting, and we're currently looking into it, you know, what you can use it for, what to do with it, and so on. And now this annoys me, so I'll stop. So this is one. Another thing I tried is maybe OK Glass, run an app. So because of the camera zoom problem, these are more or less applications I downloaded. I needed to modify them maybe a little bit or so on. I tried out camera zoom, and this is now a live picture from the video feed. And if I can kind of zoom in. This was more or less just to try out the zoom functionality. I wondered if it's possible with the camera on glass. So there's no reason why my mother should have trouble with it. And another thing, I hope this works. What was it? No. Camera app. I'm wondering if this works in here. No. Not really a bit. So this is a face detection for glass. It should give you a red rectangle, but maybe, yeah, it's really slow. So what I did is I just used the open source, the OpenCV library, and the Android, more or less the Android face detection example. And you have to change a little bit for the frame buffer, but otherwise it's fine. And the problem, this is really not made for working on glass. So if you're scared about people recognizing you or doing face detection or so on glass, I think I can tell you the hardware is not really done for that. So you can be kind of relaxed about this. Also for long-term video recording or so on, there's no chance to do this. I mean, one thing I would think that they should implement is to have a little cover on the lens, because just the physical cover, so people can recognize that you are not recording and everything is fine. I think that's something they should really do. But otherwise, I think all the privacy concerns are a little bit overblown. But I'm a bit crazy, so I'm just wrong. Yeah, this is yeah. So it just gets me to the privacy issues. There are other devices which are worse. I asked if I can take pictures of you. This was not because of glass, but this was because of this device. This is a Narrative, a small live logging camera. You can just wear on you, and it takes pictures every 1 minute. And I think this is way more scarier, and I won't wear it every day. Glass, I kind of try to wear every day and play around with it. This is, I think, kind of really privacy invasive. And there are other things, and this is, I think, $200 or something like that, versus glass. Kind of price-wise.
How much glass?
I won't. Right now the developer edition is $1,500, but I think it should be around. I'm not sure, but the reason why it's so expensive is it's because they're limited. I mean, maybe the optics are a little bit tricky, so getting the optics right, but all the materials and so on are relatively cheap. So I mean, it's a Galaxy 2 more or less device. So I expect it's just because of the low volume. So future works, I would say it's maybe around 500 if you produce it in larger volumes. But that's just, I'm kind of just giving an estimate for larger volumes. Or you can just buy, some of the spy glasses on Amazon for whatever, 50 or 70 euros, and you can just wear them. And you will be made more privacy invasive than wearing glass. But there's a big issue there, and I just wanted to give my own account about it, because I'm sometimes frustrated about Germany in some aspects. Sometimes nice country, but sometimes regular people in Germany don't really care about the US spying at all. I'm shocked about this a bit. And also, about the legal stuff, so SWIFT agreement, I'm not sure if you know this, but all the bank transactions and so on from European people are just given to the US government for terror protection or something like that, I'm not sure. Yeah, and the illegal stuff like PRISM or so on, there's a minority in Germany who cares a lot about it because of also German's history in this aspect. So we had two totalitarian regimes in the past that would be going crazy if they knew the new technology possibilities we have today. But they seem to they care terribly about if you take pictures of their public streets. Because if you look at Germany from a street view, can you see it? It's maybe a little bit bad. So you see this greenish part is where street view is available everywhere. So this is France, everywhere available, United Kingdom, everywhere, Denmark, Sweden, and so on, Poland, everywhere, and then you have in the middle kind of Germany and Austria. And some plots like Berlin or near Dresden or Munich, you have some street view, but in general you don't. So I think it's really subjective. So privacy is a subjective thing, and if you looked at the news, especially about Google, Google Glass, people get scared because Google gathers a lot of information and they have a camera pointing at you 24/7. And I also got, at least in Germany, I got one person, walking up to me and telling me, "Oh, stop violating my privacy." I then showed how the device worked, and he was kind of laughing and thinking, "Oh, okay. I thought it records 24 hours and so on." And there's a lot of misconception there, and I think also Google needs to be aware of this and take steps towards this. That something like that doesn't happen again. I mean, I'm really frustrated, and I know some other people who are frustrated because the pictures are already taken, and internally Google can use them, and they will also use them. But for people who have handicapped, so a friend of mine is in a wheelchair, and he really likes Google Street View because he can check out if he can get to a place. And also, I mean, you all know that how useful it is to just use it to find your way around, because if you can see the buildings or so on, or where you should turn or so on, it's very easy to use and good for the public. And I don't see any reason, why it's privacy invasive compared to PRISM or the SWIFT agreement, which nobody cares about. Yeah.
One question about Google Street. So what's the rationale in Germany to forbid the street pictures? Because the street is public, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Google did it kind of. It was not. I think it's legal to take pictures of the street, but Google kind of went. They had this backlash, and then they started to say, "Oh, you can opt out," and then they didn't publish. They just published parts. So far, they just published the big cities and so on. So it's more or less Google being a little bit defensive or careful about it. So.
Yeah, when you could opt out of it, and that was when a lot of people, I think, put up these blocks in front of the buildings on the street view, and then from there, I think it changed. Went like that.
Yeah, and I think it was also kind of a manufactured thing. They wanted to, they wanted to blame somebody for privacy invasion, and they wanted to. I'm not really sure where it came from. Yeah, so privacy enhancements for glass. As I said, the scene camera, I built a small privacy enhancement to put on top. It just broke a couple of days ago. This was important because I attended the Chaos Communication Congress, and people there are a little bit worried if you run around pointing cameras at somebody. And there are also a couple of other people that did this. So one thing I just Googled and I found Glasscap, which is currently also a Kickstarter, but he has also the models free, which are kind of nice, I think. You can also build some other. He also built some other stuff, which is I think not really so useful. But it's for flowers, so carry flowers around. I will put up the slides on my website, and I'll put in the rest of the links or so on, or stuff I used in the presentation. These are just a couple of them. So one is quite nice, Launchy. That's the application you saw that starts when I say run an app. So you see all of the Android applications you have installed on the device, and you can interact with it. And there's also the source, or the sources I used for some of the applications I showed. Some of them are modified, but it's relatively easy. And quick thanks to these people, so especially Shoya and Katsuma. So Katsuma started now programming with Glass here, and Shoya is currently with my old supervisor Paul, and he did the demo you saw, so the eye blinking demo, and it's working currently on eye blinking. So that's more or less it. So if you have kind of questions, remarks, as I said, I'll try to put up the slides sometime on the weekend on my website, and of course later on you can try out Glass. Just be aware that now it might not work so well because it got hot and it's currently connecting also to the laptop. So having the screencast running is not so good for it. Yeah.
So what's the roadmap for Google from this stage to release?
I'm not really sure. The problem is, as I said, Ted is a friend, and I know other people in Google X, but they are very, very secretive about it. I mean, when Ted went to Google, we were relatively sure that he might be doing something with a head-mounted display, because he's wearing a head-mounted display since he wrote his PhD publicly. But I can just, can just argue you kind of what the roadmap is. I think there should be public release sometime. They said sometime this year, but they said already last year in December you should have a public release. So I'm not really sure what the roadmap is. I mean, the device right now compared to other, I mean, I think the build quality or so on is quite nice, but I think they still have to work out some quirks in the user interface and other things. So it's really a developer preview. It's not really a finished product, you could say. So I'm not so sure. I mean, for some applications, as I said, I mean, I wore it now for around the last 2 months, more or less. Not every day, but it's kind of every second day, and also for a longer time, 4 weeks. And I think the usability right now, it's okay for me. But I think it's just for some applications I really like it. So as I said, for car navigation it's nice. There's a Strava running app, which is really nice. So I don't use my cell phone anymore for going running. That is kind of useful. And you also don't have to kind of look down or take your cell phone out or so on for this. For the other things like these micro interaction stuff for replying an email to an email or so on, I'm not so sure I want to use it. And also using voice commands for me is a bit. I think interface wise it's nice if you're alone or if it gets socially acceptable. I mean you might know the situation when smartphones arrived and people were not supposed to talk on smartphones, or also similar situations when you had headphones and the Walkman and people said like, oh, don't use the Walkman because you're kind of isolating yourself, you're socially awkward, which now glass people get told that, you get this whole glass holes debate and so on. Maybe it's also for some things it's kind of justified. I think some people really behave strangely, but I think these people in general behave strangely. It has nothing to do with Google Glass. But you have now something to spot the nerd, which is, I'm not sure what will happen there. But I think from the build, if you get it smaller, it's kind of, I think, at least right now, I mean, I would like to use it for I want to use it for several applications already, like the navigations or the running scenario. And for other things, I mean, it's nice, but it's the same thing. I'm currently trying out the Pebble and so on, and it's kind of annoying. I think I will stop wearing it because I don't like have anything on my wrist. And similar for me, because I don't wear glasses, it's also, if I wear something, it's not really obstructing your view, but it's still a little bit heavy, and if you use it too much, it also can get quite hot, especially if you charge it, on top, so it gets kind of really hot and a little bit uncomfortable. So if they fix this, I think, it's kind of nice. I mean, I would like to, for me, the cool part is not the camera, for me the cool part is a head-mounted display. So you can easily see when you're doing something, what else is going on, or you can get instructions or other things while you're focusing on the task at hand. So you're more focused than by looking at an iPad or a tablet. And the other thing is having sensors on your head, which is also kind of cool because you might be able to, as you saw, the kind of fatigue detection is already more or less implemented, so you can detect how tired you are, and you might also be able to detect other states, so you can detect nervousness or other things and react in accordance to it. And this is, I think, cool and interesting. Yeah.
Can you run 2 apps at the same time? Could you use the navigation and then run the eye, like checking if you're tired, thing at the same time?
Should we stop?
No.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes, you can run. I mean, you can do anything you can do with an Android application.
Okay.
So it's more or less Android on it. So you can run a background service without any problem. And you can just, it's a little bit modified. So the only thing that's modified is this timeline view. But the rest is just native Android. So you can run a launcher also, I mean, you can just simply, if you root it, you can just, start your own services. Also your own C services, so there's nothing holding you back. You just have to compile it for the ARM chip, and you can run it on there. Okay, so
finish.
I heard I should stop. I have the glass around, so I'm not sure how we want to do this, but you can then later on also try it out. Maybe one more question.
Can you do OCR?
OCR not on device. I mean you can maybe do OCR, but I would say, as you saw with the face detection is relatively simple.
Yeah.
And you saw all the performance right now, and it gets hot.
Yeah.
And OCR, we will try, because you know the lab is doing this stuff, so my students are doing this, so we will try also document image retrieval and other stuff on it, but I think I would say if you don't offload it somewhere, it might be difficult to run it completely. It will work, but it won't work in a way that you can put it in an application.
I won't be able to do like wrong translation of the text that I'm reading, for example.
Yeah, there's you can try out later WordLens. It's already there.
Oh, yeah.
That tries to do kind of text translation as for the iPhone app. But yeah.
Cool.
Does it have? You said that the Bluetooth does not work this time. Does it have any other wireless kind of?
It has Wi-Fi. It has Wi-Fi. It has Bluetooth. Bluetooth works, but just for
yeah.
low energy, which would be nice to have due to several reasons.
You can you can get a backend somewhere and they process your the image that you're taking, so it doesn't have to be OCR on the the machine itself.
Yeah. That's
With the phone.
But also, I mean, if you take continuous pictures or so on, battery won't last. And also storage is 12 gigabytes, so this is a little bit tricky. We will play with this, but I think you definitely need an external battery, and these are some of the limitations. And I think the device will also get relatively hot. Also for the OpenCV examples I tried so far, so it gets relatively hot. Yeah, so okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Kai.